Good evening, beloveds, and welcome to the Don Lemon Show. You'll understand why I just said that in just moments. And some of you, if you see her on the screen, you know why I did it. So welcome to a very special edition of Live at 5. We're going to break down all the news of the day, just like we normally do. We're going to talk about this brand new Quinnipiac polling that is very good for Vice President Kamala Harris, and all the latest developments we're going to tell you in the Diddy arrest, but we're going to talk about it in a different way on this particular program. We're also going to talk about faith, okay? So get ready. I have been talking to this beloved for a while. I've been friends with her, and we have been discussing things, and we've been talking about the book, and we'll discuss. So faith in politics, faith in America, faith in general, and who better than to do that is my incredible guest today, and that's Miss Iyanla. We know she's Iyanla Vanzant, but we call her Miss Iyanla, a New York Times best-selling author, renowned life coach, and spiritual guru. Thank you so much. How are you?
I am so blessed and so happy to see you. I'm like fanning out.
Thank you, Iyanla. Iyanla, you texted me when you found out that I was doing the book, and you said, do you mind telling our subscribers?
I'm gonna get it because my brain frequently takes naps, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. My brain will take a nap on me in a minute. I said, congrats on the new book. So glad someone has brought spirit God into the conversation. I thought I was the only one out there.
Thank you for that. That meant the world to me. And you're here today. So let's bring spirit into this conversation because you know we need it. I discussed to you what we were going to talk about today. You guys know all of those things, and we're going to play, some sound bites for you. We're going to put it into context. But there is this. Let's start with the politics, okay, Ms. Iyanla? A brand new Quinnipiac poll just released a couple of hours ago. It shows that Kamala Harris, the vice president, is leading the former President Trump in three critical states, must-win states for both of these campaigns. So she led Trump by 6 points in Pennsylvania. She's leading 51 to 45%. 5 in Michigan, 50% to 45%. 1 in Wisconsin, 48% to 47%. This sea change in Harris's direction isn't just in the swing states. It's happening everywhere. And people seem to be falling in love with her Hope and Joy campaign. Let's watch this. Play it, please.
Dramatic movement. My goodness gracious. When Harris entered the race, when Joe Biden dropped out all the way back in mid-July, I know it was months ago. It was only 2 months ago, folks. She had a net favorability rating of minus 14 points. Just by getting into the race, look where she jumped to a month later at minus 3. And this week, for the first time, she popped a positive net favorability rating. That is, more people viewed her favorably than unfavorably. If you had asked me 2 months ago whether I thought Kamala Harris in the aggregate would ever, during this campaign, pop a positive net favorability rating, I would have said you were crazy. But the fact is, you weren't crazy. I was just not thinking creatively. Kamala Harris has come into this campaign, and the more voters have gotten a look at her, the more they have liked her.
It's interesting. Now compare her standing to the last 2 presidents when it comes to favorability.
Yeah, so, the idea that you would have a candidate at this point in this environment having a net positive favorability rating is part of the reason why I didn't think it was possible, was because look at Donald Trump's net favorability rating. This is actually higher than he was in the last 2 campaigns at this point, but still underwater at minus 9 points. Joe Biden at minus 14 points here. And this, I think, Harris's initial net favorability rating was kind of tracking with Biden's, right, because she was the vice president. But as she has gone out on the campaign trail and become her own candidate, she has been able to pop this net positive favorability rating, and she is the only one of these 3 who are in positive territory, Sarah.
All right, so that's Harry Inton, my former colleagues, Harry Inton and Sarah Seidner over on the CNN. And Harry is good, right? He's a good statistician. He knows all these things. My question to you is, Iyanla, are you surprised that Harris's hope and joy seems to be beating Trump's hate and fear?
Absolutely not. John Maxwell, who is the leadership guru, 21 laws of leadership, the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership, lead like Jesus, the 21 laws of teamwork. He says in his book that a leader must capture your heart before they ask for your hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is not, I think my experience of her is that she is capturing people's hearts, speaking to the things that are on people's heart. I know they're asking for specifics, but she doesn't even have a cabinet. How's she going to give specifics? They got to work that stuff out. Stop it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but she's speaking to people's hearts when she speaks about her mother, when she speaks about opportunity, when she speaks about small businesses, when she speaks about childcare, reproductive rights. She's speaking to people's hearts, and then she's asking for their hand. That is an irrefutable law of leadership, and also a demonstration of character, which is sorely missing from this race.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that because, I love the joy and the hope, and obviously I'm a believer. One would hope that would win out, right, in America. But you have the other side. As I said, they are playing on hate and fear. I just want to hone in on the real cruelty that I think has become the core of the GOP, ushered in by this MAGA movement. The former president had his first public appearance, since the attempted assassination, and he spoke at a town hall in Flint, Michigan, with the governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Remember, Sarah Huckabee Sanders was his White House press secretary at one time. However, his comments, shockingly, well, not so, because his J.D. Vance has been overshadowing Trump's comments as well. But Trump's comments were overshadowed by one remarkably cruel comment from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Here it is.
Not only do my kids serve as a permanent reminder of what's important, they also keep me humble. You can walk into a room like this where people cheer when you step onto the stage, and you might think for a second that you're kind of special. Then you go home and your kids remind you very quickly you're actually not that big of a deal. And ours are pretty good at it. So my kids keep me humble. Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble.
Whoa. What is their obsession with women without children of their biological connection?
Yeah, I mean,
Kamala Harris is the stepmother of 2 children with her husband, Doug Emhoff, Cole and Ella Emhoff. They call her Mamala. They consider her as much a mother as their own. In response to Governor Sanders' comments, their biological mother, Kirsten Emhoff, wrote on social media, quote, "Cole and Ella keep us inspired to make the world a better place. I do it through storytelling. Kamala Harris has spent her entire career working for the people, all families. That keeps you pretty humble."
Yeah.
What is this exception? I mean, honestly,
it's just cruelty. They really, first of all,
you're turning off an entire population of people.
No,
they just don't want those voters.
They are playing for a very small subset that relishes the cruelty. Mm-hmm. First of all, it's fascinating that Sarah Huckabee Sanders, you still can't pronounce Kamala Harris's name correctly. That's the first thing. For the other, you want to make them the other, continue to mispronounce their name like everybody seems to do on Fox News when they know better.
Okay, so listen, they know her name is Kamala. And I think that Joe and Mika make a very good point, especially Joe, when he talks about otherizing her and mispronouncing her name. The cruelty seems to be, it's not a bug, it's the feature here, Iyanla. What do you make of that? And J.D. Vance, the childless cat ladies, and people shouldn't be making decisions if they don't have children. What do you make of that?
Well, a great writer, spiritual writer, Paul Ferrini wrote, "The worse a person behaves, the greater is their cry for love. Say no to the behavior and yes to the love." And really, when we see people make that depth, one of the greatest causes of suffering in the world is ignorance. And when people are in a state of ignorance, they need to be loved. That doesn't mean you go around hugging them and patting them. You say no to that behavior, but you don't start loving them. And that's why I think her Joy and Hope campaign is so important, because it keeps people's heart open. That level of cruelty, that level of meanness, really is a cry for love. Mm-hmm. And it's a demonstration of fear. But here's the thing that we got to get, Don, I'm a spiritual technician and a metaphysician. So I don't care what shows up on the surface. I'm looking at the underbelly. I want to know what's going on. And when we see it out here in the world, my statement is, if it's in the chair, it's in the room. There are people who think like that, who think if a woman doesn't have children, or if she's not married, or, they can't challenge her intelligence anymore, being a lawyer and a state's attorney and a prosecutor and the vice president. So then they just go after her personhood. And they have a tendency, people who are in fear and ignorance and lacking love have a tendency to go after the personhood of people of color. They don't want to talk about it, but she is a woman of color. Their law says 1 drop of blood makes you not only a person of color, but 3/5 of a person. So they're going after her personhood. That's ignorance. So we don't let that cloud our heart. Stay on the joy, stay on the hope. And as grandma would say, this is what Mammy would say: I'm gonna pray for you.
I'm gonna pray for you. I want to know where this cruelty comes from. That's going to be my question, but I would just want to play just another example of a great conversation that was also from Morning Joe's. I was watching Morning Joe this morning. This is John Heilemann talking about the cruelty of the MAGA party. Let's listen to a little bit of it, and then we'll talk.
One of a billion examples. I mean, we had Kevin Williamson on with his extraordinary essay on what's happening in Springfield, Ohio. And he just talked about how they know they're lying. Everybody on the ground knows they're lying, but they continue doing it and continue putting people who are here legally in danger for their lives.
Yeah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders proving with this performance that those who think that she is a rising star in the Trumpified Republican Party are probably right. I mean, this is what it. You look at her. You look at JD Vance. You look at there's so many object lessons, Joe, of the ways in which Trump's corrupted the Republican Party on this front. They are both good examples of this. They're people who clearly know better. And are smarter than they appear on television, and they recognize, they think they have a future in whether Donald Trump wins the presidency this year or reclaims the presidency this year, or whether he goes away. This large question of what happens in the post-Trump era. This is a preview of it. JD Vance, is just brazenly just gets up and does the thing you've been talking about the last 2 days, gaslights people on the question of what's going on in Springfield, Ohio. Sarah Huckabee Sanders gets up and says, "This is what it takes." She says what it takes to be accepted in a party where now, because of Donald Trump, the cruelty is the point. And
So that's it.
Not
Listen,
just obviously
we get what he's saying, and he's making a very similar point that I'm making. What is going on? Why be so cruel, especially when you're supposed to be the party, at least you claim, of values?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What happened to the MAGA party?
Fear of losing control, fear of losing their place, fear of growing, fear of stretching, fear of being different, the them and the us. There is no them, they want to make it about them. It's really fear, Don. Things are changing. The universe, the multiverse is changing rapidly. And things that people were convinced were true are being proven to be untrue, and they're holding on. You have a line, I think it's in chapter 3, where you talk about what happens when people are called to change and they don't allow the truth to inconvenience their fact.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fear. And that's what we're looking at. And that's why they need love. There are only 2 emotions, fear and love. And if they're not in love, if they're not sharing love and unity, it's fear. And they're in fear of losing, and then losing to a person of color. But that message, particularly the one about Springfield, Ohio, I hope Black men are listening to that. Because I know that many Black men have a problem with Kamala Harris. Let's just be real. Let's put it out there. Number one, because she's got a white husband. Okay. They don't think about all the black men that got white wives, but of course there's a different standard.
Tell
She's
it
got,
now. Come on.
okay, I'm on to, because people are whispering about it around the table. And the other thing is, because of the breakdown between black men and black women in our community, in our relationships, in our family, they're looking at her and all of the things that they make up about black women, they're holding about her. But they better watch that thing in Springfield, because if they'll do it to them, they'll do it to you. They'll do it to you. That thing is so violent. That is an act of violence. And again, dehumanization. They're going for their personhood. They're in the park collecting the geese. I saw a gaggle of geese today. I said, now if I get out this car and walk over there, all them geese gonna fly away. So I wouldn't know how the people was catching the geese in the park. You know, just we just have to just shake your head, but don't let it shut your heart down. Don't let it shut your heart down. But pay attention.
I love that you go in. Let's go in and talk about that, because I hear that all the time. And look, I was just on talking about my book on Alec Baldwin's podcast, and he's been going through it, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about praying and how the situation that happened to him, how it affected his life and his faith, and so forth. And you said paying attention
Yeah.
to
pay attention inward now. That's pain. Pay attention inward now, but pay attention to every little thing. I'm sorry, I cut you off. I'm not.
No. We're having a conversation. I don't mind when people have natural conversations. They cut each other off. I don't care about that.
Particularly black people.
Yeah, right. That's what people don't get about us. We're just talking. They could never go to a spade game with us, because then they'd be like, "Oh my God!" So. No, when you said pay attention, those black men need to pay attention to what's happening in Springfield, because he said he was shocked. He's like, why are these black men supporting Donald Trump? He couldn't understand it. Why do they have a problem with Kamala Harris? He couldn't understand it. And you are explaining it, I think, perfectly.
Yeah, there's a breakdown. The systems and the structures that have created the division among black men and women, that have destroyed our family structure, that have really destroyed our community, whatever you want to call it. I'm not putting blame anywhere. We all have a level of responsibility and ownership. So there's such a breakdown and division among black men and women, and she's a black woman. They want to call her woman of color and Indian, whatever they want to call her. But when they come for us, they're gonna get Kamala too. Okay, they're not gonna let her off the hook because her mother was an Indian. And so that is what's showing up. And I don't think that they're paying attention to the fact that anybody that treats a woman, objectifies women, diminishes women, demeans women, not only do they not have goodness in their heart, they'll come for you. They'll come for you. And I don't think that black men are paying attention to that. And I understand that they want her to speak directly to the things that matter to them. But so do the poor black women, Asian women, Latin women. I'm part Cherokee. Nobody's speaking to the indigenous people. Nobody. Not Kamala, not Biden, not Walz, not anybody. And we're standing in their house. This is their land.
I call them Iyanla. I like to call them the real Americans.
Yeah, right.
You hear so much about real America, real America. I'm like, well, the only real Americans are the Native Americans, indigenous people.
So I get that black men want Madam Vice President to speak to their needs, but that thinking that is a form of separation, that their needs and their as black men and as Americans and wherever they are, that their needs are separate and different. And that is exactly what those other folks keep doing, making us separate and different. Oh, we're going to do this for you and that for you. I want it all for all of us, because I can't rise any higher than my brothers rise.
Right. So that's the part for the Vice President Kamala Harris part. What about the Trump part? So what speaks to them? Is it aspirational? Do they want to be like him? Do they want to be on airplanes? Is it a male thing? Is it an ego thing? What is the attraction on that end? Because you can not like or support Kamala Harris, and then you cannot like or support Donald Trump. It doesn't mean that you have to, you know what I mean, support one or the other.
Yeah. My sense, because I can't speak for Black men. I haven't been one in this body that I recall.
I'm glad you said that.
My sense is two things: power and money. That he disillusioned. Let me tell you something. You know how many Black men have been shot in the street or shot at and hauled their ass to get home to their mama? And this boy gets shot at and come up like this. I'm like, oh my God. Well, whatever that was. And, he's the big macho man. And because I think Black men have been so diminished, demeaned, demoralized, dehumanized.
They don't have the agency that white men do.
Yes, they don't. But that demonstration of that.
I should say we don't have the agency.
And, and the way he treats women and the money. Because, I'm do this groups in the community and stuff. And I want to, okay, tell me what you're thinking, what you're feeling. I can't touch everybody, but I can touch 10 and they'll touch 10. And the thing that they do say is, I believe he's going to help me with my money, with my business and whatever. But it also speaks to, and I say to them, but what about character, beloved? He has no character. He demonstrates no character. And basically they say, I have character and where's it getting me? Oh God. So
yeah. Well, let me just say, we read our subscribers' comments. We let them be part of the show, Iyanla. So Happy, thank you for your generous contribution to independent media. Really appreciate that. Happy says, and I think she's speaking about MAGA overall. She says, I call mental abuse on those who know most MAGA followers are weak-minded. Now, these are her words. Yet they continue to play volleyball with their minds with outlandish, false rhetoric. Go on.
Again, fear and ignorance. I want to encourage us, invite us not to call it any names. Let's not judge it. Let's see it. And again, let's look at what is the value of it. But here's the thing, Don. Those, however many millions of people that are supporting him, Black, white, green, whatever they are, they see themselves in him. They do. Otherwise, they couldn't embrace him.
Yeah.
They see themselves. There's something about him. Now, let me go back all the way and tell the truth. When they won the first election, and I was looking at it, and it was just so outrageous to me. You were still on CNN at that time. I remember saying, oh my God, I used to do that. I would jockey and try to get people on my side, convince people that the way I wanted it is the way it is. I would threaten or intimidate people into supporting me. I had to be right at all costs, to the point where I would lie. Thank God I'm better now. But you know what? I can see it and call it what it is. The people who are supporting that haven't yet called it what it is in themselves, but they see it in him and they vibrate with it. They vibrate, and that's what they're drawn to.
Melina NC, thank you so much for the contribution. She says, my YT, meaning my white coworker, just told my Black self, VP Harris isn't Black. So over this. Love you, Miss Iyanla.
Yeah, well, what did the Christ say? The Christ say, I am who you say I am. I can say she's Black. She can say she's Black, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says, because we get to self-identify. What does that white woman say? That white woman saying that Madam Vice President isn't Black. What does that cost her? What does it cost you? What does it take from? She can say whatever she wants to say. I am who you say I am. That's what the Christ said, isn't it?
Yeah, right on. So listen, this is something that I tackle in the book, and I want to talk because I also think that there is cruelty in this, but I want to get your take on it. I don't want to influence you. Now, I don't know. I'm not sure if you remember Hadley Duvall, and there was an ad where she is sadly abused by her father. And if the laws had been reversed, she would have to have carried that child to term. She spoke at the convention, yes. And there's also this ad from her. I mean, speaking of caring for children and caring for your fellow man, watch this.
I've never slept a full night in my entire life. I was 5 years old when my stepfather abused me for the first time. I just felt like I was alone on a planet with a monster. I was 12 when he impregnated me. I just remember thinking, I have to get out of my skin. I can't be me right now. Like, this can't be it. I didn't know what to do. I was a child. I didn't know what it meant to be pregnant at all. But I had options. Because Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade, girls and women all over the country have lost the right to choose, even for rape or incest. Donald Trump did this. He took away our freedom.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
So this is tough for a lot of people because, you know, certain, as I write it in the book, people feel a certain kind of way about a woman's right to choose. I call it reproductive rights, and you know, abortion. That's a term that if you want to use that, you can. But it's more than just unintended pregnancies. There's so much more. It goes way beyond that. And I don't know of one law, regardless of how you feel religiously, spiritually, there's not one law that tells a man what they can do with their bodies. And so why should it be any different for women? And this is my question to you, and you can, you know, disagree with the premise of the question, but why do people who claim that they are evangelical and they believe in God and they want to, you know, believe in life and they want to help everyone, that they continue to act with such little godliness?
Yeah. Lack of character, that they call religious or whatever. You do such a beautiful job of that. And I once was lost making that distinction, but it's a lack of character. I can say my uncle raped me when I was 9. And when I was 19, I had an abortion. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that the options were available to me. My uncle didn't impregnate me, thank God. But even at 19, when, you know, I considered myself grown, I knew I wasn't prepared to have a child. And that's a decision that I had to make. And I didn't make it lightly. And I prayed about it. You know, do you pray about having an abortion? Oh, hell yeah, you do. Because I believe God is sovereign. And I believe God is in every choice, every decision, every mind. And if it was for that child to get here, I don't think my choice to have an abortion would have been overrun. I was going to have an abortion with my second daughter because my husband, a Vietnam vet, was addicted to drugs, was addicted to heroin. And I didn't think I could do it. And every time I went to get it, this happened, that happened. Okay, she's supposed to come here. We can't say God is sovereign and that God has given us free will and then say, this is wrong, that's wrong. I'm not going to have to answer to the MAGAs. I'm going to have to answer to God. I'm going to have to answer to God. And so even the thought, even the idea, Don, of the whole procedure of an abortion came through a mind. And every mind is connected to the one mind, the sovereign mind. And how those procedures have been perfected, how the abortion drugs have been created. All of that comes from mind. And we're all connected to mind. These are options, and we all have free will. So I don't think that anybody can tell me what I can do with my body. And what'll happen is when there was no law and there were no drugs, women who made choices about what to do with their body did it with a clothes hanger.
Yes.
And they'll do it again.
In the bathtub.
In the bathtub or the toilet or a dirty basement, because that's our free will. How can you take my free will? You don't have to agree. And I love the fact that they want all of these children to come here and they don't want to feed them.
And they ended up dying. The women a lot of them ended up dying.
Absolutely.
Unable to have children again.
Yeah.
Unable to have children in the future.
Yeah.
And if you want, you got to take care, as you were just saying, you got to take care of a child for life, right? That's what the life should be about.
Excuse
Oh
my
my gosh. No. I have babies. Don't even worry about it. They love it. That's the doggy.
Yeah, 2 palms.
What are their names?
Peace and freedom.
Oh, they want some freedom. They want out of that room wherever you have them because they want some peace. So mine are upstairs, and you might hear them barking because as it gets closer to the 6 o'clock hour, that's their dinner time. They get a little rambunctious. They're like, "Daddy, I'm ready to eat. Let me out of this room. Let's go. Let's go." I'm going to stay on this subject, and I'm going to cover because there's some developing news that's happening with Diddy. But I just want to play. This is Donald Trump on a Twitter Spaces talking about the assassination attempt against him. And now I want to pay close attention to what he says about God here.
Okay.
He didn't exactly hit the target the way he wanted. There's something going on. I mean, perhaps it's God wanting me to be president to save this country. Nobody knows, but when I made the right turn, it's very unusual because the people weren't on the right. The people were standing out in front of me. When I turned my head at an exact 90-degree angle, the bullet came zooming by and clipped my ear.
Okay. I want. Can you hold that thought because I want to play something else, or do you want to respond immediately?
No, go ahead.
Okay. This is a Trump supporter. This is the first one, guided by God.
About Trump that you love so much?
Number one, he's a godly man. He's working for God, for darn sure. Number two, he really cares about us. He cares about us. He cares about what happens to us. He cares about our country. He didn't come in there because he wanted the money. He's got money. He is coming there because he is actually working for God, and he wants to help us, and he wants to get us to he wants to make America great again. And I it's true.
Okay.
But I think he's going to make it even greater because I don't think, no matter what they try to do to stop him, he's going to come back because he's working for God and God's on his side.
Okay, one more. There's another one too. Another guided by God soundbite. Here it is.
Haven't got a choice. It is President Trump and President Trump only. He's strong enough. Who could have put up with what he did the last 4 years? Nobody. It's almost like he's not even altogether human, as if God has got him by the shoulders and saying, "World, this is the man that will save you. He will save us."
Okay, so you have him saying, perhaps God saved me to be president. Trump is guided by God, and Trump is a godly man. So you want to take on those 3 things, please?
I'm going to say 2 things. Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, things that are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things, think on these things, speak on these things. Philippians 4:8. I don't understand how people can confuse the things that the Republican candidate says with truth. How is it noble to speak of a congresswoman? And this is when I had my first awakening. The Honorable Maxine Waters as what was she called? A low life, a low IQ, or the things that have been said about anybody. Those things are not true. They're not noble. They're not just. And God, you got to know the nature of God and be aligned with the energy of God to be one of God. We're all of God's children. We're all God's children. But eventually you're going to have to account for those things. So when I can't say this is a man of God or a man God is putting before me to lead me, to guide me, to make laws for me, because the things he speaks are not noble, true, pure, lovely, or of good report. Then I look at Galatians 5:20, which says, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, long suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against these, there is no law. Well, I'm looking for the fruit of the Spirit in my candidate. I'm looking for a joyful spirit. I'm looking for a kind spirit, a gentle spirit. And I'm looking for a spirit that got self-control. If you can't yourself, can you just control yourself? Because if you can't control yourself, how are you going to control the things that matter to me? So, we can use God, just as you said, and I once was lost. People use religiosity and churchianity to justify anything, but that is not of God. It's not. If it's not like God, then it's not God-like. And God would never say of his children, they're eating cats and dogs if they weren't. God would never say of his children, you are lowly, you are what was the other, a fascist, you are pathetic. God wouldn't, that's not godly. So you can call it what you want to call it, because they also said to the African slaves that in order for them to be freed, they have to accept the white Jesus. So people will use religiosity to justify anything. I just want people to understand. Just go read Philippians 4:8 and Galatians 5:20. And if that line, if what you're looking at in your candidate lines up with those two scriptures, well, okay, then follow your heart. You have free will.
There was something that I forgot to play, and I'm glad you said that. Those are the two things you wanted to say, right?
Yes.
About that. Okay. I forgot to, as it relates to the cruel thing in the beginning that Sarah Huckabee Sanders said about the vice president, Madam Vice President, as you call her, and about women and other things about women who don't have children or people who don't have children.
Yeah.
Our friends over at The View, I thought, had a fantastic conversation. Whoopi's going to let you have it, right?
Okay.
And when you said, it sparked my memory when you said, people can self-identify and it doesn't matter what other people say about the white coworker saying she's not Black. That jogged my memory to play this soundbite. And then I'm going to play this, and then we're going to talk about the breaking news when it comes to Diddy. This is The View.
All of this has gotten me to the place where I don't care what y'all think of us. I don't care what you think of how we feel about being human beings on this planet. I want you to talk about the stuff that matters to people. If you really, again, as I said, if you care about families, make sure that when you actually get an idea of what you need to be doing for the people of this country, you'll include children in that. You'll make sure that children get what they need. And all of this discussion, stop saying mean things about, stop doing it. You first. You stop first. Because I remember, Sarah, when people were saying mean stuff about you, and we stood and we supported you because we said, this is not how we talk about other women. What happened? You sat right here. You understood. You heard us say that. Where are you coming from now? Who are you, Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Who are you?
Who said Yeah, Whoopi get the same haircut. You must be from the same tribe. Whoop, whoop.
What'd you think of that?
I think it's, like I said, that's what the Christ said. I'm going to do that example. I am who you say I am. I remember when I started this work 43 years ago, Don, and people wouldn't let me in their pulpit. They called me a voodoo priestess. I had a church across the street from the building I owned. And I remember, you remember Emerge magazine? Emerge magazine put a picture of me on the cover. I was doing something, and they got a candid shot and asked, is Iyanla Vanzant fooling Christians? And that was the last issue that they ever published. That was the last one. The next one was Rap Brown. That was the last one they have. George Curry, who I loved. He was my brother. I love George Curry. But anyway, people, and then as metaphysics and spirituality and things became more popular, then I became popular. But I'm no different now than I was 43 years ago. when I said, God is, and God is, and God is. Earlier, you said something about faith, and when Andre said his faith was shaken. Is it faith or is it trust? Because we have been lied to so much, Don. We don't know what to believe anymore. And that will rock your faith. If you don't have trust in faith, if you don't have trust, you can't have faith. And our faith has been shaken because we've been lied to so much as people, as a country, by everybody. So now when things come up, we're so skeptical about everything. You have to pick a side and line up with it. And you have to pick up on the things that resonate with you. That's why you got MAGA people, because I live by the oar theory. If I want to move forward, I've got to roll the oars. Ownership. I got to own my stuff. Accountability. I have to say what I did and own it. And responsibility. I am responsible for me. You're a leader and you can support, but I am responsible for me, not you. And my goal is to see that how you're moving, how you're living, how you're being is supporting who I'm choosing to be in my life. And for me, that is not somebody that's going to lie on my brothers and sisters and say they're eating cats and dogs. That is not somebody who's going to call a woman ignorant, pathetic, and a bunch of other things. That's not somebody that's going to mock handicapped people. That's not somebody that's going to say, I can grab a woman by her punani, and as long as you're powerful, they will let you do it. See, it's our responsibility that we let that slide. And now we've got a $10 million lawsuit. If you want to know the end, look at the beginning. We shouldn't be shocked. We're at the end of this thing, and we just have to look at the beginning.
I'm going to get back to this because that's something I want to play at the end, and I want to get your response. So I'm going to get back to this, and I want to talk about, and look, for me, this is a tragic story all the way around for the victims. And we know that there is a victim because we saw videotape of it, right? And people have been awarded legally, it's been adjudicated. And for such a great loss of a person and a life, that someone who really made a difference. Now, that's not to say that I don't agree with anything that he's accused of doing or is doing. I'm just saying that was aspirational for Black men, what he did for hip hop, that he was a music mogul, right?
Still is.
But I'm just saying the story, okay? So as you know, he asked the judge to grant bail again this afternoon to let him await his sex trafficking trial in his luxury home on an island near Miami Beach rather than a grim federal jail in Brooklyn. But for the second time, he has been denied. And so according to the reports, Diddy's fight to get out of jail has stopped in its tracks. Because after arriving in court today to appeal a judge's ruling, he shouldn't be released on bail. He is headed back to the detention center. The rap mogul arrived at a federal courthouse in New York City on Wednesday, where his sons, Christian and Justin, came out.
Daughters.
Yeah, came out to support their dad, though ultimately the judge in the case decided not to grant Diddy bail. Here's what the judge said. Judge Andrew L. Carter Jr. said that there is no condition or combination of conditions to ensure he will not obstruct justice or tamper with witnesses. Combs, dressed in the same black shirt and gray striped sweatpants he wore during his first bail hearing on Tuesday, dipped his head, looking down at the defense table when he heard the judge's decision. Now, I don't think I need to go through all the salacious things you've read, right, the stories, and you've read the indictment, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me.
I want to take the personalities out. Diddy, R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby. Do we not see that there's a problem? If we take the personalities out, I said it before, I say it again. Right now, Don, in Ohio, in Missouri, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, there's a man abusing a young girl, his stepdaughter, his niece, his granddaughter. And we stay silent about that. Tell me her name. We just saw the commercial, 12 years old, being violated by her stepfather. And we remain silent. We remain silent in our families, in our communities, in our homes. We act like we don't see it. It goes on. Foster children abused by foster parents. This goes on, and we remain silent. And then when we see it out in the big world with the celebrity, now we're horrified and shocked. I was raped by my uncle when I was 9. That was 61 years ago, 63 years ago. And you know what they told me? Shh. Nobody said a word.
Really?
Nobody said. What happened was they stopped leaving me in the house with him. So when they would go out, I'd have to go with my sister or my brother or my aunt. My sister and brother were older than me. They didn't want me dragging along with them. So I became the problem. I became the problem because a grown man sexually violated me. But nobody said, "How are you?" We do it all the time and we don't respond. Then we get outraged when we see a Harvey Weinstein, when we see a Bill Cosby, a R. Kelly, and some that we can't even name. The ones who could pay it off and didn't. It's hypocrisy. And I'm not condoning what they do at all. But I'm saying if we want to clear it out in the GOP candidate has a sexual abuse thing right now.
Oh, he was found guilty of sexually abusing a woman. The judge said that it was rape.
Huh?
He was found guilty of sexually abusing, liable of sexually abusing a woman. The judge in the case clarified and said that it was akin to rape.
Yeah. And even if it wasn't, you can't grab me by my private parts. You can't take advantage of me. But we down here on the ground see it, know it. Men know that their wives other men are beating their wives or doing, and they remain silent. Women see it, their niece, their granddaughter, and remain silent. So now, why are we outraged that we see it in the world? The other part of it is for me that I came to learn about my uncle who raped me when I was 9. He's sick. He's sick. He was sick. And if we see sickness and we ignore it, that's how we lost Michael Jackson. That's how we lost Prince. That's how we lost, we buy into and we become complicit in these things. So my point is this. If you love somebody, say something. Don't allow someone else's, don't become complicit in someone else's sickness or weakness because it benefits you. I bet everybody remains silent. You know what the greatest crime is, Don, for me, or the greatest, not crime, but difficulty, is how people's ambition became what was preyed upon. Or whether it's R. Kelly, Harvey Weinstein, I'm not looking specific. I'm taking the names out because they wanted to be successful, or they wanted to get a record deal, or they wanted to be in the movie or whatever. That ambition, that drive, and that part of them that would do anything to succeed was preyed upon by someone who didn't have the fruit of the spirit of self-control, who didn't have the fruit of the spirit of kindness and goodness. The spiritual sickness. And it goes on every day. And we got to deal with it on the ground so that it stops being broadcast in front of our face.
Miss Iyanla, you're touching some hearts because I'm reading from our subscribers, and I'm just going to read some of it if you'll bear with me, okay? Because you're bearing witness in others as well. Hyatt Truth, she put it in the comments, so I imagine that she's okay with me saying this. Hyatt Truth Art says, Iyanla, I understand. Same in my house when it happened to me. The silence was deafening. Miss Lashebe says, it's literally happening right now and not much is happening to combat it.
Yeah.
Let's see. There's other here. there's others here. Millennial Mom says, I can't find it. Oh, there were other folks who said that it happened to them.
Yeah.
So many women and men have this story. It breaks my heart. People forget boys are also hurt, says Kristen Thompson.
Absolutely. And we seem to get outraged when we hear it out in the public. What makes Harvey Weinstein or Diddy or Bill Cosby, anybody that was accused of these things, you know, what makes them any different than Joe Fletcher, who's diddling his niece, or James Smith, who's fondling his nephew? How many people, how many boys, grandfathers, uncles? And when are we going to deal with the sick people who do it? When are we going to deal? What is that sickness? What is that quest for power and superiority over other people that would make you violate all the fruits of the spirit, the love, the joy, the peace, the kindness, the loving, the self-control, all of that? And Don, it's in us because God built us all with the same spirit. Although the GOP candidate thinks his brain is bigger than everybody else's, that's not true.
I want you to hear this, Iyanla.
Okay.
Rita Marlene says, wow, Iyanla is talking facts. Thank you for being here, says Baby Girl Thought. Thank you for being here. This helps. Same, says Smith Apple. Same. I was 9. And Uncle Dream really messed me up.
Yeah.
Millennial Mom in her Y2K says, she is speaking so much truth. Then when we attempt suicide after being violated, we can't talk about that either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Big Sis Chris says, I was abused and I told to protect my granddaughter.
Yeah.
Oh, Iyanla, I'm so sorry, says Osfly Girl.
No, don't be sorry. It made me who I am because I learned that I'm more than a body. I had to learn that I have a right to reclaim my dignity. I had to learn to forgive myself because I blame myself. I blame myself, and I stayed ugly until I was 30 because I figured if I was ugly, nobody would bother me. Okay? So yeah, don't be sorry. All things are lessons that God would have us learn. And this thing that's going on with this election, this is a lesson God would have us learn. Are we going to ignore what we see? Are we going to call it something else? Are we going to get mad at other people because they support the crazy? Or are we going to use our free will to make a choice that honors the truth of who I am? I am not my sister's keeper. I am my sister. If you tell Kamala, if you tell Madam VP she's ignorant, then you're saying I'm ignorant. If you say that she's low IQ, then you're saying I'm low IQ. If you say she's ugly, then you say I'm ugly. And I'm going to vote for me, not what you say. That's just me.
I was also assaulted by my grandfather at age 9. Why is this so common?
Yeah.
Higher Truth Art, who said that she had been abused, says, I had to forgive him. I did it for myself to heal my soul, Iyanla.
Yeah. Let me tell you what I learned. This is not true for anybody else. This is what I learned after many, many years. See, first of all, I didn't even know that I had been raped. I didn't, because in the Christian house, you don't talk about things like that. I didn't know what you call it. I just knew I didn't like it and it wasn't going to happen again. So I told. But here's what I learned many, many years later. My uncle was a Black man out of the Carolinas, very dark skin, came up north and worked. The only thing he knew about love was sex. And as distorted and, jacked up as it is, he was expressing love. That's all he knew. As a dark-skinned Black man out the South, he didn't know the kind of love we know about today. Now, he may have known that it was wrong because I was a child, but he was my uncle and he took us in, me and my brother. He took us in. So in his mind, he's loving on me. Now, that sounds crazy to say, but in my soul, I said, oh my God, he was showing me the only kind of love he knew, which was sexual. And I forgive myself for believing that was my fault. I forgive myself for believing I don't. That's why, Don, I am committed to teaching forgiveness. I teach forgiveness. I teach forgiveness.
I'm glad you teach forgiveness. There are so many people in the comments who are saying that they have been molested by all members of their families, or they know someone who was molested by members of their families. I want to play something for you, and then we're going to put a hotline number up, the National Sexual Assault Hotline. We're going to put that up for people who have issues. Thank you, Lee Maria, by the way, for your generous support to independent media. Iyanla, she says, Lee Maria says, thank you for sharing your truth. I am a retired educator who often had to intercede on behalf of my students who reported abuse. Strong connection of this behavior and the Republican candidate, I guess they're saying.
Yeah.
Now, we also have to remember this. The vice president and possible future president, Kamala Harris, said that part of the reason that she became prosecutor, a big reason, is because her best friend, remember, was being abused by her father or her stepfather. And she said, come live with me. And she did.
Yeah.
And she said that influenced her for the rest of her adult life.
I want to say this very quickly. One of the things that I experienced after the 46th presidency, I lived in an abusive marriage because, of course, being abused as a child, I grew into a woman who invited abuse into her life. America is an abused woman. I see it so clearly as a woman who was abused and remained silent, as a woman who made excuses for my abuser, as a woman who blamed myself for what was going on, as a woman who lived for 9 years in a marriage with a man who beat me every time the sun came up. America is an abused woman. And the way Americans are behaving in this country reminds me of who I was, trying to protect my husband and fearing him at the same time. America is an abused woman.
Thank you for that. You see the number up on your screen, and thank you for your vulnerability and for your truth, your honesty. For the National Sexual Assault Hotline, 1-800-656-4673, 1-800-656-4673. There's also a national domestic violence hotline. There it is up on your screen, 1-800-799-7233. So please call those numbers if you know someone or if you're being abused yourself. Now, Iyanla, I want to put this up, and it's long, all right? So if you'll bear with me.
I will.
Because I want to understand. I think this pastor makes a very good point about what's happening in society. He asks questions, and some of these questions, I hope that you may be able to answer for us, because I think he is speaking truth.
Okay.
He shares my idea of what God and religion are and faith. Okay? So here it is. Listen to this, please.
I just have some questions. Just some questions. When did speaking up for the poor become a euphemism for socialism or Marxism? I have a question. When did empathy for immigrants become anti-American? Another question. When did compassion for those dying in Gaza or the dispossessed in the West Bank become anti-Semitic or anti-American? I have another question. When did banning black books, or any books for that matter, become a new way to show patriotism, especially if you live in Florida? I have a question. When did lying about an election become a new way to gather support to run for a position? Let me say it this way. How come white folks can riot at the Capitol, destroy property, attack the police, create an insurrection, But Colin Kaepernick taking a knee just drives everybody crazy. I just have to ask some questions. The man lost his job, and it's called anti-American. How is it a convicted felon, a perpetrator of sexual assault, and a serial liar is the nominee for the presidency of the United States? I'm just asking a question. These things are different. Why do white evangelicals vote for a candidate with deeply questionable faith and moral character? I just have some questions. What is it? What is it? Why are we so quick to ban books but not assault weapons? I'm just raising some questions. Why is it we vote to privatize prisons for profit, but we can't vote to raise a teacher's salary? I just have questions. Why is it we spend almost $1 billion in this city to respond to crime, but can't get an ordinance passed in Chicago to invest in the prevention of crime? Why is it? Why? I would submit to you today that what is called the white evangelical church has become morally bankrupt. The space for the elevation of Jesus has become a tuning fork to harmonize slogans that echo the Confederacy.
Beautiful. That thing right there, that needs to be commercial. That right there. And you know, as a public speaker and you as a journalist, I'm sure you know this too. One of the things my speech teacher, Mary Umalu, taught me, that in your presentation, you have to answer when, where, what, how, and why. And those questions he asked, that's it. And to get us thinking, so what? No, he said, when did? I think the answer to the when did is when the average person in a I don't even know what the word is, a dysfunctional education system was taught that somebody else knows more about you and what's better for you than you did. That's when it happened. And how come all of the things he asked is because we have been programmed and conditioned to believe that our power is external and not internal. So we deny what we feel, what we know, what we sense, looking to the outside. So we think somebody out there. That's how come somebody with such little moral character, someone with no character, no values, someone who again does not demonstrate any fruits of the spirit can, vie to be our leader, because we think our power comes from the outside. He said, why? Well, again, because we've been programmed and conditioned and trained and educated in the society to believe that I got to go along to get along, that your voice is better than my voice, that my worth is in my bank account, not in my genius, in my imagination, in my creativity. That's why. So those are some of the answers. So if you're thinking that somebody out there is going to do more for you than the power you got in here, then you go on and vote for somebody that ain't got no character. I ain't doing that.
And that, you know why that resonated with me, because I said, when did? And those were the questions that I wanted to answer in the book. That's the exploration that I did. That's when I had the crisis of faith. I said, wait a minute. They are really distorting what faith and God and religion are.
Yeah.
They are injecting that distorted idea into our politics.
Yeah.
Which is corrupting our country. It is pushing us into a theocracy that's not in a good way, I believe, and away from democracy and away from God. And they're seeking to marginalize already marginalized people with lies. And that is why I wrote this book.
And I want you to know, if you're watching, if you're listening, go get it on Audible. Go get it on Kindle. I'm telling you, I'm only up to chapter 6 and my head was whipping around like I had fingers on my neck. But you know, I want to say this again, Don. When did it happen? How is it happening? Why is it happening? Yes, faith is important, but we got to also get back to trust. You know, scriptures tell us trust in the Lord. That's an internal process. And once you trust in the Lord, you can do the work of faith, faith without work. So faith is external. And unfortunately, we got it twisted. We're looking outward to build our faith as opposed to looking inward to build our trust so that our faith can be demonstrated.
I'm going to leave you with this, Miss Iyanla. Everybody, please hit the thumbs up, the like, and subscribe, and then make sure you get notified for our shows. Because where else do you get this? You don't get it anywhere else but here. And Miss Iyanla, remember my old conversations with you had to be, 3 to 5 to 6 minutes. And it's like, okay, I got to get these questions in, got to get to the commercial break. Thank you, Iyanla. We have spent an hour discussing the Lord, okay, on my show, on my channel. So I'm going to read, this is from my book. And if you're out there and if you're wondering why I did it, there are a lot of reasons, so that I could reach people like you who have been abused, right? Whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's domestic abuse, whether it's violence, or whatever it is, to reach people like you. So this is on page 158, Miss Iyanla, in the book. And we're talking about how the book may affect some people, because I go there in this book.
Yeah, you do. You do.
And I'm just going to read something for you. It says, I suspect that this book will spark a lot of anger in liberals and conservatives alike. I try to be an equal opportunity shit disturber, following to the best of my ability in the footsteps of Jesus. They call him the Prince of Peace, but Jesus was the most influential shit disturber of all time. Those of us trying to follow his lead can't just sit here and be passive in the name of peacekeeping. When evangelical zealots see something they believe is wrong, they don't quietly seethe, they mouth off. For me, I'm talking about Alberta's book, something that I referenced earlier, was a call to action.
Yeah.
It's time for quietly progressive Christians to get loud. We can't stand by while the name of Jesus is co-opted for an agenda he was emphatically opposed to. He couldn't have made his message any simpler, and he died trying to get it into our heads. Love one another.
Yeah.
That's a brief section of the book.
Remember, he said, Father, they know not what they do.
Yes.
So we don't know what we're doing by avoiding things like character. I want to say this to you, Don. Like I said, I'm only on chapter 6. First of all, I love, you say lots of salty words in the book. I love it. I love that you're bilingual. I love those sentence enhancers.
Thank you.
I love it because that's real. That's real. Thank you. Thank you. I love your sharing, through when you left CNN, I just prayed for you. Every now and then I'd send you a little text. Thank you.
And thank you for that.
You are the demonstration of transformation. Let me tell you what I mean by that. Change is a process. People want change, but they don't want to go through the process. Change is the process. Transformation is the result. And I'm looking at you today and having read just the first 6 chapters. Thank you for sharing your process of transformation and making it a little salty.
Thank you. Thank you, Iyanla. I got back from doing Joy Reid's show on MSNBC, and I got a call from someone that everybody here would know if I said his name, and it's and I talked about how I felt that I had been ostracized from the church. That person called me, FaceTimed me. I was, warming up my dinner, and started crying on the phone and said, when you talked about your book and what you said on Joy Reid, I felt the spirit. And I just wanted you to know that I can't wait to read your book, and I thank you for doing it, and I hope everybody else does it. But it was a very profound moment, because you never know. And I said, you know what? That's it. I've reached one person, and it's one person who felt empowered just from my words. So thank you, Iyanla.
Don't limit it to the book, Don.
All right.
The book is wonderful. Celebrate your transformation and that you did it your way with sentence enhancers.
Thank you, Iyanla Vanzant. Bless
Thank you,
you.
Don
We
Lemon.
love it. Be in touch.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I appreciate it. And for those of you who are in the chat, I just really appreciate it. Go out and buy the book. Get it for your friends, your loved ones. I really appreciate it. Tonight, I will be on News Nation at 9 o'clock Eastern time. I've been doing a lot of cable. News Nation at 9 o'clock Eastern time. They're tough over there, so I'm going to have to answer some tough questions, and let's see how I do. But thank you for watching the Don Lemon Show. Make sure you hit the thumbs up, the like, and subscribe before you get out of here. And make sure, Miss Iyanla, where can we see and get you?
Iyanla.com. Iyanla.com. I'm getting ready Monday the 23rd. I'm starting a 6-week class on radical forgiveness, because it's not just about saying the words. It's getting into the core, owning accountability and responsibility so that you can be redeemed. If you've got upset in your heart, if you've got regret, remorse, anger, if you ain't speaking to somebody, radical forgiveness. We start Monday the 23rd at Iyanla.com. Come on, and spell my name right.
Yeah. Not Iyanla, Iyanla.
Iyanla.
I tell people it's Iyanla, like Kamala.
Yeah.
Iyanla, like Kamala.
Yeah.
Thank you, Iyanla. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Love you guys, Lemonheads. I will see you tomorrow, or if not before.